It's time to look at everybody's favourite team, the Charlotte Hornets. Can we get anything out of this team? Maybe, who knows? They're not going to be bad forever, I promise, I think. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and I'm going to flip it all on its head. I, myself, one man, I'm going to take down 100 gorillas. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We are available on all platforms. Hit the thumb and the double bang and the comments and all of that stuff. Great. Pre-recording this one a couple of days in advance. We're talking Charlotte Hornets. It is Japanese Green Tea Day, Ryokucha no Hi, which I assume is pronounced incorrectly, but it's Green Tea Day in Japan. May the 2nd is when I'm recording this, or when this show is going out. So that's where we're at. We're talking the Hornets. Now, in the previous two shows, the Wizards and the... Jesus, who was the other team? That other bad team. Who are they? You know, the terrible one. Utah. That's them. I gave a split of let's do the 25 and up group and then the under 25s. For Charlotte, I had to move that to 24 and up because they are a younger team overall than what the, apart from some like 40-year-olds. But as a general rule, there are way more of these players who are under 25 on the Hornets team than there are on Washington or Utah. So we're doing over 24s in this one, and the other one is under 24s. So that's how we're doing it. And this show, we'll go through some of the base numbers around the Hornets as well, and talk about their draft picks and free agents. We might as well just get stuck straight into talking about that now in terms of how the offseason can sort of set up for this squad as a basis for where we look at them from a fantasy point of view. In the draft, they have chances to get pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. They finished with 19 wins. The Jazz had 17 and the Wizards had 18, so all within one win of each other. Well, you know, 2 wins between Charlotte and Utah, but that's where they sat. So they were 19 wins. They were 2 ahead of the next team, and I didn't think it was going to be this bad for Charlotte this season. They had some injuries, obviously some big injuries, but they also just struggled, particularly down the stretch. And they are a tough team to figure out. They shouldn't be as bad as they are. They changed coaches, they changed management, they changed ownership. And yet it was still a very familiar story. And they should be better than this. In terms of their draft pick, their best odds are getting pick 6 at 26%. And then it's pick 5, and then it's pick 1, 2, 3, 4, with the lowest odds being pick 7. They also have pick number 33 and pick number 34. So 2 premium picks at the beginning of round 2, which unlike Utah and Washington, they don't have those picks. They don't have their own picks. So they got their own pick, plus they got the Pelicans pick at the start of round 2. Not saying they're going to get necessarily great, huge contributors there, but they are some premium second round picks that the Hornets have got to themselves. In terms of free agency, the only 2 unrestricted free agents on this roster are 2 guys that you shouldn't really care about in terms of making the team better on court. It's Taj Gibson, who is literally 40 years old, and it's Seth Curry, who had both of these players started games this season. You can bring them back for their leadership and veteran mentor stuff and all that sort of stuff, but do you need both of them? Do you need either of them? Does it matter? It's obviously not a big deal, and it's obviously not having an impact on team building. Even their non-guaranteed deals, there's 3 players that have got non-guarantees for this upcoming season. Josh Okogie has got a partial guarantee. It's mainly non-guaranteed, and part of the reason that he signed the contract that he did, much like Rashawn Holmes in Washington, but part of the reason that Josh Okogie signed the contract he did with Phoenix is that he knew that he was getting overpaid so that he could be traded. I lied. He doesn't have a partial guarantee. He's got completely non-guaranteed deal for this upcoming season. The other non-guarantees are Daquan Jeffries, who is completely non-guaranteed, and Moussa Diabate, who has got so does Jeffries, two completely non-guaranteed years left. I would expect that Diabate, who started games, and Daquan Jeffries, who started games, will both probably be back. Ikogi's a debatable one. Obviously, he came over in the Nurkic trade, pinged his hammy and barely played, but there is use for these guys, but it's all going to depend on what else they do. What do they do in the draft? What sort of trades do they make? What do they do in free agency? Because that just gives them an ability to clear space out if needed, not necessarily cap space, but more roster space. The question, I think, the bigger question for this team is restricted free agency. Not necessarily Wendell Moore Jr.'s restricted free agency. He's a two-way contract player who had been in Minnesota as a first-round guy, and then he was in Detroit, and they ended up on a two-way in Charlotte. That he doesn't matter. It's Tre Mann who matters, who came across in the Gordon Hayward trade and was pretty good at the end of the previous season, and then this season came in with a pretty solid sixth-man role, and then hurt his back, and we never heard anything more about it. And now he's a restricted free agent. He was sort of looking like he might be a solid, and that's a lot of qualifiers there, but he might be an okay sixth-man type. You don't want Tre Mann to be a starter. Not at all. You don't. If you're that, you're going to win 19 games again. But as a scoring sixth man type, pun unintended, there is something there. Now, he is not going to get a big contract because he didn't play and he's never proven a single thing. But there is upside in Tre Mann. We're going to be covering him more. Actually, no, we are covering him on this show. My bad. So we'll be talking about Tre Mann on this show. And it'll be interesting to see exactly how that plays in free agency. But in terms of all those other guys, he's really the only one that we go, okay, that's interesting, because if he does go, it does change things. If he is back, we'll see what it means for other players. But in the general scheme of things, he's not like a huge part of fantasy or anything moving forward. Although I think this season there was a chance he could have had some fantasy value. There was a chance. Let's talk about the main player on this team that we do need to get into. And the main older player, the main player who is over 24 years of age on this team, and that is, of course, Miles Bridges, who had an interesting season. He was honestly bad to begin the season. He was lost. He didn't really find his role with Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball running a lot of stuff, and it was only really at the end of the season when Miller went down and then Ball was out, that Bridges was able to put up numbers. So a lot of the numbers that he put up, and while I'm going to say they're fake, fake is the wrong word, but they were heavily influenced by the absence of other players. He finished as the 46th ranked category league player, Miles Bridges did, but after the trade deadline, 29th. He was 55th pre-deadline, but remember, some of that pre-deadline time was without Brandon Miller, obviously Tre Mann. LaMelo Ball missed some time, not that much pre-deadline, but he did miss some time. Bridges ended up with 20 points and 7 rebounds. He had 4 assists. The steals and blocks that he used to get in big volume aren't really there or coming back. But again, for nearly the millionth year in a row, and that's not exactly accurate, clearly, but the shooting was a problem. And he had that one real outlier shooting season. Was it the no crowd season? Might have been. But otherwise, he's just been a bad shooter. He was an interesting sort of a... Is interesting the right word? Probably was. So when we look at Bridges' season, and look, he was a little bit better this season than the previous year. The advanced deltas are positive. He's not anything mind-blowing, but it was solid enough. But look at those defensive numbers. Deflections, incredibly low. Doesn't contest shots, and that's reflected in the defensive stats. His offensive load was 90th percentile. His passing creation volume was 83rd percentile. And all of that, you'd say, that's good. What are we complaining about? It is good. It's good, but he got to those numbers because Brandon Miller was gone. Because the second half of the season saw no LaMelo Ball. And if this team is as they are, and they might have a number 1 pick, Cooper Flagg, who can play and will play the same position as Miles Bridges, he's toast. He's not doing these things. He's 27 years of age. He played 62 games. We had a knee injury earlier in the season, and we saw how bad the struggle was early. As a third option, and what would turn into being a fourth option, he'd be invisible in fantasy. Because he doesn't defend the level he used to. He doesn't shoot the way that he did for 1 year. He thrives on being on this bad team, having guys go out, and then they rely upon him to bump. Look at that usage, 28%. Bro, nobody wants that. Nobody wants to live in a world where Miles Bridges is a 28 usage player on their team. It does not lead to good things. It won't lead to good things. I think that's very obvious and very clear. It won't be a good time if that is what your team is relying on. Now, it's very easy to sit here and say, well, that's fine, Josh, but they are bad and guys will get hurt and he will just be there and be reliable, except he won't. Like, he won't always be that guy. He won't always be there. If I'm in a dynasty format with Miles Bridges, I have to use these numbers in some creative way to get out of it. I have to get away from him. Moral reasons, legal reasons, whatever, that's not even beside the point. He has benefited in these seasons from injuries to other players, and he is going to get phased out, down, away, into a nothing player. Well, not a nothing player. Again, who will be a team that goes, yes, you are a high-level passing creation, usage, offensive load player, but you also don't defend and you can't shoot? That's a great recipe for success. Nobody is thinking that. So while we might actually get another solid Miles Bridges season next season because he stays in Charlotte and other guys get hurt and they still don't supplement with other players, to me, when I look at what he does, what he has done, what the numbers suggest, is that it's never getting better from here. It will all continue to go down, and it would have been a pretty bad season this season had it not been for mainly the Brandon Miller injury. So it's where context of numbers, because you can look at that and go, he was ADP was 60th and he finished top 50. Killed it. What a great pick. You said it was a bad pick to fade him. What a great pick it was to get him. And that's all well and good. But that is why a blank look at numbers means nothing. Because there are so many reasons to me, unless there's just a wild change in priorities or change in his game all over here, it's going to be bad. I'm fairly confident it's going to end up pretty rough, and we're going to be looking and go, oh, how did Miles Bridges average 20 points a game? The reason he did is because he had to. And in NBA games, unless you're Miami playing against Cleveland in the playoffs, you generally have to score 100 points or 90 points. You generally do. That's what a team will usually do. It means somebody has to do it. And when we're assessing these bad teams, as they get worse as the season goes on, you have to understand that stats will be accumulated. But do they make sense as an ongoing idea? Today's episode, it is brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever check in on your bank account and you wonder, hey, where did all the money go? You're dining out, you're online shopping, you've got entertainment and subscriptions and whatever else that you're paying, and then the money just dwindles, it evaporates, it erodes. Monarch Money can help you keep track of that. It's like your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. But Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, all of your investments, and all of your spending in one place. So you don't need to just be managing your money. You can actually start building wealth. One of the best features of it is the convenience. Putting all of your apps together in one spot, so you don't have to log into each individual app. We love two-factor authentication. That's great. It keeps our stuff safe. But having to do it for 10 apps, 7 apps, all to check something when we can get it all securely put into one spot, well, that's an easier way to go about it. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com. The code is LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. He's an interesting player, Bridges, for numerous reasons. Again, just there's some overrating, and there'll be like an availability is the best ability crowd that does enjoy Miles Bridges. Remembering, again, he missed 20 games. With a knee injury, he just missed them at a different time of year than you were expecting. So, yeah, I don't really buy that part of it either. So, for me to say that I would be out on Miles Bridges as a long-term good fantasy contributor or as a dynasty asset, you'd be pretty accurate with that. And he really is the major high-level player who is over the age of 24 on this team. Over the age of 24 as of the time of me recording this right now. Which is pretty incredible. The next guy I'm going to talk about, and again, when we focus these teams, there are going to be players that we talk about. Did I say I was going to talk about Tre Mann? I think I might be lying there. I don't think Tre Mann is on this list. Oh, no, he is. My bad. The next two players we talk about are players who aren't earth-shaking. They're not earth-shattering. That's the word. They're not guys who are impacting everything. But they were gone. They were done. And then their minutes had to be taken by other players. And they're still useful players. And we're going to start by talking about a guy who Amazingly, he played 15 games only. But Grant Williams was almost a top 100 player in those minutes, and I don't really believe it myself. But he was. He played 30 minutes a night. He was playing small ball center, and again, context. Why was he playing those minutes? Mark Williams was out. Jusuf Nurkic wasn't on this team. It was Grant Williams and Moussa Diabate and Taj Gibson as the centers. So Grant was 105th. He obviously didn't play after the trade deadline because he tore his ACL. He played 16 games with 15 usage. He's 26 years of age now. He averaged 10 and 5 with 1.1 steals and 0.8 blocks. He shot the 3-ball pretty well, 37. He shot his free throws well. He saw some big improvements in Darko, and I thought he was pretty good in the minutes that he played. He contested shots at his undersized height well. He wasn't an on-ball player. He passed okay. I thought he did some okay things. And when they bring him back next season, which they will unless they're moving on and doing trades and all that sort of stuff, he is a very valuable backup 4, backup 5, key defensive sort of connecting piece. Will we ever look back on a season from now on and look at Grant Williams and go, oh my God, he was the 105th ranked player. He averaged 24 fantasy points, which is what he did. Probably not. I don't think that'll happen. But as with so many players, while individually they might not be important to you from a redraft perspective or a dynasty perspective, the presence or absence of them is important. Grant Williams being there or not being there impacts Miles Bridges. It impacts guys coming up, Moussa Diabate. It impacts Tidjane Salahin. Will Grant Williams be a tradable piece to open up stuff? Maybe. There are so many different factors there, but he is a useful rotation NBA player who showed that he can be a useful rotation NBA player in these minutes. And useful rotation NBA players, which is a phrase I'm going to repeat for some reason, they have impacts on them and their teammates, and that is what Grant Williams does. He generally makes players better. And his presence makes them better, meaning he plays, meaning others don't. And that is something we watch. I assume that he will be 100% by the beginning of next season. ACLs should be ready to go. Well, 100% by that I say he should be opening day available. Getting back to full function and full ability post ACL is normally an 18 months thing. I had this discussion with my partner the other day, talking about saying months, and how in my accent in particular, when you say months and really enunciate the TH, it feels weird, because I would just say months, like Nelson, haha style, MUNTZ, months. It just sounds better. Yeah, he's back in 18 months. But you know what months means, but it's months. Should I enunciate more? Enunciating legend, Josh Lloyd. Anyway, Grant Williams. The second guy is someone I've referenced already, but it is Tre Mann, who started the season really well. He had a few strong... that's not true. His role looked pretty good early on in the season. There were injuries there which enabled him to be able to do a little bit more than we thought he was going to do. But then what did he play? 13 games? He's just turned 24. He averaged 23 fantasy points in 25 minutes. Oh, no, he did play well. What am I talking about? He shot 40% from 3. He didn't generate any defensive stats, but he had good usage and he scored well. The problem here is that there was not much else going on. He didn't do anything else with scoring. He didn't do anything else with defensive stats. And interestingly, both Drip and Darko, despite him shooting well, despite him improving, their deltas all were negative. They were like, yeah, I'm not sure about this with trade. This might be bad. And I think that that's largely a sample size issue. I actually think Tre Mann was pretty good in that role. And he was a guy that we didn't think necessarily would guarantee these minutes because Josh Green was there. He'd just come in and we didn't know how they were going to run that rotation. But Mann was starting to look all right. But then a back injury ruined him. We still, honestly, and I know people will say we heard that he had surgery. We didn't. We had one reporter from, I believe, the Hornets subreddit. I think that's who it was. It might have been Spencer. But one reporter, not a mainstream reporter, who said that he's going to have back surgery. Nobody else has said that. The team hasn't said that. There's been literally no mention or announcement whatsoever on Tre Mann's injury. Now, when it happened, back at that time, I was like, this is a long-term thing, and I do not think he is returning because of the wording they're using and the moves they are making. As soon as he went down, they went and brought in other guards on two-way contracts to fill in the gap. But that was, and they have changed, my man Josh Longstaff, they've changed their injury staff, their management, but this was as egregious, and we didn't really take as much notice of it because it didn't impact fantasy as much, but as egregious as the Mark Williams non-reporting last season. Just nothing. Not, again, maybe I am wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. But I would love to find the official report from the Hornets, the official tweet, the official press release about Tre Mann's injury costing him the season, about surgery, about anything. I don't believe that it exists. I don't believe that it's there. So you can cite me an article on FanDuel or CBS or ESPN that all links back to that one initial tweet by that one reporter. But nothing was ever said, which is frustrating. Anyway, Mann, like I said, is a restricted free agent and will find a role somewhere on this team. But the opportunity was there this season, and I'm not sure it's going to be like that again. Jusuf Nurkic was someone that I was massively wrong on this season. I thought that under Mike Budenholzer in Phoenix, he'd be able to be a solid top 100 fantasy player. I thought that his minutes would be strong because he was much better than the other centers there. And then he and Budenholzer just hated each other. He got banished, which was, again, not based on ability because he's way better than those other centers. And then he came over to Charlotte, and I thought that overall in his time in Charlotte, he still showed that, yes, he can be useful. Was he good? I would say that those advanced Delta numbers would suggest it was a huge drop-off, and that is true. He did drop off, but he was still better than like Nick Richards, for example. 20 usage, 21 minutes overall. He was still the 144th ranked player in 21 minutes. So there was still use in Nurkic, and with Mark Williams' A, fragile health, and B, maybe fragile standing within the organization, I don't know, Nurkic is just a name, I wouldn't draft him, and I wouldn't be valuing him in dynasty leagues, but what if he did a Miles Bridges and played 26 minutes because everyone fell down around him next season? 9 and 8, 0.7 blocks, the shooting was terrible, 48 and 66, and he's always been a bad field goal guy as a big man because he just, for some reason, cannot finish at the rim. But I wouldn't say that the Charlotte tenure, and he outplayed like Moussa Diabate when he came across. I wouldn't say that his time in Charlotte suggested that Jusuf Nurkic can't play in the NBA. I don't think that's true at all. His rim contest number really low. That's pretty bad. He's a solid passer, but like none of those advanced things really stand out. The deltas are big, first percentile. Like just that's a horrific drop in drip. 11th in Darko, and he was worse. But I thought there were just a couple of signs of life for Nurk in his time in Charlotte. So you would think, given his contract, he's going to be very hard to move on from. Which, if I look at his contract, what is his deal at? He's a $19.4 million expiring contract. So maybe it is movable or stretchable towards the end of the season. But he's at least, you would think, going to begin the season as the starter. Or sorry, as the reserve, but the backup center. But of course, Mark Williams. Josh Green came across from Dallas in an off-season trade. I believe they actually gave up a second-round pick to get Josh Green, and he had an opportunity to get minutes as a starter on this team. He got minutes, 28 minutes a night. I would say that he was pretty bad. He never had a good fantasy game. He's had some moments at times in the past when he played in Dallas when everybody was out, and he would ramp his usage a little bit, but he was like just completely missing on this team. 12% usage, bro. Not really close to being a top 200 player, not even a top 300 points league guy. 7 points a game, but then couldn't shoot from the field or from the line. He did hit 39% from three, but as a defense-only guy to get 1.1 steals in 28 minutes, that's really rough. Contesting at the rim 5th percentile, deflections under 50th percentile, under 20% time on ball. He just never had the ball. 7th percentile in load. Drip, for some reason, thought he improved. I did not. I thought he was way worse. And Darko agreed with that. 21st percentile delta. Big drop. Now, he's just turned 24. He's not super old. But I don't really see it with Josh. And look, he's an Aussie, right? So look, should I have Aussie bias? No, I don't. I don't have bias towards Australian players. I have bias towards players that I think are good versus ones that I think aren't. And unfortunately for Josh, I don't think he's good enough to be a starting caliber NBA player. He is a ninth man-ish sort of a player. And for fantasy, he's probably never going to be a top 150 guy. Even though he is still relatively young, I don't think that I've seen anything that would suggest that that's wrong. Let's go to another Josh. Another defense-only wing, Josh Okogie, who came across in the Nurkic deal. I think he started a game, then pinged his hamstring, and then came back towards the end of the season. But as we always know with Okogie, he's going to have this little run, a 3 or 4 game run where he shoots 45% from 3, and people go, oh, should we be adding Josh Okogie? And then nothing else happens. That is just the pattern. He ended up as the 301st ranked player. His usage was high for a guy that's so bad offensively, 19%. 7 points a game, but what I do like, if you want to compare this to Josh Green and his defense, 1.2 steals for Okogie in 18 or 16 minutes with a deflection rate in the 95th percentile. And that is what you do if you are not an offensive player. That is what you should do. That is what we should look at as fantasy managers and where this can go. Now, he is 27, of course. I thought that, again, from where he was in his career back in Minnesota, he has settled into a role of like, okay, I am a defense guy who's worked a little bit on my shot, 35% shooting. I don't need the ball a lot. I'm just going to do defensive things. I thought he was solid enough at that. Again, we get into the crunch because Green, Okogie, Mann, like, do any of these two-way guys do anything? Nick Smith, the second-round picks, their first-round pick. Who's in the backcourt? But Okogie, at least, if injuries strike or you find a 28-minute role, which would be pretty much malpractice to play him in that role, but if you did find that role, then his steal number would probably be good enough to be used in a lot of fantasy options, or fantasy leagues. So while, is he good? No. But compare and contrast to Josh Green, who we just looked at, yeah, Okogie's a way better player from a fantasy point of view, and maybe honestly from a real life point of view. The ceiling is very limited, but better in that spot. Let's talk about Damian Baugh. Yeah, and he is an older player. Two-way guy who came in with limited games. That's what the two-way contract does. And when you sign late on the two-way contract, it gets prorated down. And he's sort of an on-again, off-again starter. He played some point guard. He played 25 minutes a night. He had opportunities. He averaged 7 points a game. And he shot 21% from 3. 32% overall. The 4 assists and 1 steal in 25 minutes are somewhat interesting. He ended up playing 15 games. He's, like, look at his time on ball, 82nd percentile. Passing creation, 83rd. Like, the time on ball is unrealistic. The passing is interesting. The deflection numbers are really interesting. But bro just can't shoot. He is on a two-way contract again for next season, a full year of a two-way deal where he can play 50 games. Is he a better option, say, than KJ Simpson? Probably not. Nick Smith? Debatable. Could he turn into a pestering guard type? Maybe. But the advanced stuff actually thought he got worse as things went on. That's not a good sign. It's the first real time we'd seen Damian Baugh, who had some okay moments. Like, there were some okay moments, but that shooting is an untenable number. The defense is good. The on-ball stuff is good. But overall, this is a nothing sort of a player who, main reason that we highlight him is that he played minutes, and you think he's younger, but he's not. This man, Daquan Jeffries, he came across as part of the Mikal Bridges trade. The Knicks needed somebody to dump contracts, and this is who they got. And this man just did not play in the beginning of the season. He just wasn't there. He had a wrist issue and he just didn't play. And I didn't know that he'd get any minutes at any point. And then the Hornets had this unbelievably truncated part of their schedule where they played like 5 games in 7 nights or whatever it was. And we looked at Daquan Jeffries and go, okay, let's stream the man in because we just need volume. And he had the best 3 or 4 game stretch of his entire career. And it was one of the greatest streams of all time to pull it out, which is just a lot of luck. Because then he just disappeared again and he went back from starting back to being a bench player. He ended up with 47 games. He 13 usage, he's 28 years of age, averaged 7 points. He shot 34 from 3. There's honestly just nothing that really stands out here. He should be doing a little bit more defensively. He should be a better shooter if he wants to find an NBA role. He won't. He can't. Shout out to Daquan. Let's go to the next player. And the last 2 guys, I just want to mention because they're OGs. They're still out there. They might not be after this season, but Taj Gibson actually played NBA games. Actually started NBA games this season. He played 37 games, 11 minutes a night. Yeah, his numbers have dropped. Somehow he was a 50% three-point shooter. He didn't really take any of them, barely any, but he was out there averaging 3 rebounds in 11 minutes. It's not terrible. Hopefully Taj stays around basketball. He just seems to be a universally liked guy, but it's Taj Gibson. He's a million years old, and he filled a role, but you really can't be this team and have Taj and Seth Curry always taking up roster spots. But they did need adults in the room, and as you see, they are still a really young team, and he filled some of that role. I don't know if Nurkic can fill that role for them, but I would say that getting Nurkic, having a Kogi there, they're older, a little bit more experienced players that I'm not sure that these guys will be back. Because the other guy is Seth Curry, and part of the reason that Seth Curry is back is we know the Curry family are just legends in North Carolina and with Charlotte. He started games as well. Somehow he played almost 70 games. He wasn't able to crack the top 400 on a per-game basis. He still shot an unbelievable 46% from 3. He shot 85 from the line. There's nothing else. He was a low-usage, low-minute player. He looked like he might be completely washed prior to this season, and he did improve a little bit. He is 35 compared to Taj Gibson's 40, but at this point, you just can't risk Seth Curry being out there. He'll have some good shooting performances at times, and he's still going to knock him down, but everything else is just a complete liability. So I shout him out. He was an underrated player for many years in the NBA, but I don't think there's any real value left in Seth Curry as a player. And that's the old guys for the Charlotte Hornets. We're going to come back with the next show and talk young guys. LaMelo, Miller, Mark Williams. He did not hit her. He did not. We're going to talk about all those guys coming up. Hit the sub button, hit the thumb, comment down below. I really do want to hear your thoughts on Tre Mann, but more importantly, Miles Bridges. Do you agree or disagree with my take on his season and his career as we move forward? Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.